Hello, my name is Anna Tokhmakhchi, and I am a Hromadske journalist. Currently, I live and work in Kyiv, but 5 years ago, I was living and working here, in Mariupol. On January 24th, 2015, my mom and I watched through the window as the Skhidnyi neighborhood was being shelled. Back then, we didn't realize that the missiles would hit the residential quarter, this apartment block or this private housing. Later, when we found out, we gathered our belongings. We had 2 bags standing in the hallway for the next 6 months, in case we had to flee. They consisted of clothes, documents, essential items. Fortunately, we never needed them. Now, 5 years later, we are back to the Skhidnyi neighborhood to find people who were affected by the shellfire and ask them if they managed to repair their houses, receive compensation, and how they're getting on today. Do you come here often?
No, very rarely. I'm scared, but I have heart problems. My daughter says that they shoot quite often. Our house wobbles, it sways. They shoot like from about 10 kilometers.
This is nurse Olena Mitsik. She and her husband, mother and children lived in this house for 3 years. Since 2015, she has not spent a single night here.
The roof fell apart from that side. Follow me, I'll show you my barn. We built another one. I don't want to dig, but an already broken shell lies here. I do not want to dig, it's dirty there. It's already blown up like a pan.
And it's not dangerous if it stays here?
No, the toilet was also blown up. This barn wasn't here, we have to build it from scratch. Everything was on fire here. The pipes burst and both these roofs were burning.
Almost everything was burned down in this house. The projectile hit a gas pipe. In 5 years, the roof has been restored, furniture has been bought, and the yard has been refurbished.
It was a beautiful house, the roof was very beautiful. Not like this, but it was brightly colored on 4 sides. This used to be a new fence, there were paving flagstones, it was all destroyed. We had a forge gate, you can't even tell now that there used to be a forge gate here. A lot of money was invested. Will 120 bricks suffice to rebuild everything here? Everything was collapsed here. We couldn't even find shoes. We don't even know how I meant to get home.
These shots were taken by our journalist the day after the shelling. Olena tells us that looters came here later. They took out everything that did not get burned down. 6 months later, the family was paid compensation, but it was not sufficient. They still had to borrow more. How much did the repair cost? Did you calculate?
They estimated the damages at 1.5 million hryvnias, and we got somewhere around 500,000 in installments. This door was held by my daughter from the other side. I'm certain if she didn't lie down in time, 4 holes appeared here. We were lying on the floor screaming. Come here for a moment.
Olena says she is still under stress. Off camera, she tells us that she turned to volunteers for psychological help, but they said they only help children.
Immediately after shelling, I lost my sense of smell. My eyesight deteriorated. My sleep was poor already and now I have insomnia. I can't convey, Anna, that's what they say in films when they should cry. I wouldn't cry like that because I wanted to be an actress, but because my heart aches here. 5 years. Time heals, but it hasn't healed so far.
After the renovation, Olena's daughter and her grandmother settled in the house. The woman says she would also like to live here, but she can't.
My co-worker and I, she was also a nurse, we worked together for 30 years. She says, Lena, when will we meet? We never did. She went to get an injection across the road. Then it started and she came out of fire. She fell down on the road and screamed for help. A woman came out and said that she looked at her legs and there were no legs. My friend's both legs were torn off. She was crossing the road there at the next bus stop. I got burned down when she was killed. That's how we met.
And this is the neighboring Stanislavsky street where the Chityrkin family lives, Maria and Yevhen. Can you tell us what happened to the house after the shelling?
All right, let's go.
Their home was not as badly damaged by the shelling as Olena's, but Maria's mother, an 89-year-old woman at the time, was injured. She is no longer alive.
She came out here and was hit by fragments. These were all like a sieve. I found them and polished them a little bit.
On the day of the strike, the couple were returning from the market.
We saw that everything was light here. It was all black.
And when we arrived here along our street, people were running, some were barefoot, some in sleepers, some in nightgown. Everyone had bags, everyone was screaming. It was impossible to drive past them. There were so many people. I ran into our house and I was ankle-deep in glass. It was impossible to get anywhere and our little dog was at home. Mickey, I called him up. Mickey was nowhere to be found. I ran down and there was our mother, sitting with blood flowing from her chest.
The woman was hospitalized and underwent several surgeries. She was in the hospital for a month. Maria and Yevhen spent this time cleaning, closing up their windows and roof with film. Then they got on with the repair.
I am a former employee of Azovstal, the local ironworks. As a retired veteran, I was given about 9,000 hryvnias, or $560, for the windows, not from the city council, but just from Azovstal.
The employees of the metallurgical plant who were injured during the shelling were given money by the private holding Metinvest. City council inspectors estimated losses at 300,000 hryvnias, or $19,000. Maria had taken the documents to the district administration 7 times.
Poroshenko came to us during the opening of the memorial of the victims of Mariupol on the Western. I stood and watched how he was greeted, fed, thanked, and he rose, and I saw his face and thought, I should ask something. And I yelled, Mr. President, why aren't we getting money to repair the homes that were damaged? He didn't hear a thing. Our mayor, Yuri Khotlobey, appeared from somewhere with flowers and 3 or 4 ladies with badges from the administration. And he took my hands and said, how, this can't happen? I replied, I'm standing in front of you here as I live and breathe, but I haven't received a penny of money from you. And he started yelling, figure it out, figure it out. These women surrounded me. That's what Khotlobey was yelling. Yes, the mayor of our city. I spoke with him many times since then. We left and went home. 15 minutes hadn't even passed before I heard that a text had arrived. I open my book, and it is. I open and look at it. They sent me the money.
Maria received 35,000 hryvnia, about $1,400. Later, the region council sent her a letter. If the sum was not enough, it could be appealed through the courts. The city council promised compensation for damages to private or apartment buildings and should have paid them on top of the financial assistance to the families of the wounded and the dead. No compensation was paid for property. For example, cars, market stalls, and stores. According to the law, the state should do this, but there are no such mechanisms. Vasil Hotko tried to sue the city council for compensation for a car that got burned down by a projectile falling nearby, but he hasn't managed it in 5 years. Vasil Hotko should have taken over here to tell his story personally, but he refused to talk to us on camera. He said he got tired of repeating the same thing for 5 years, but he said he would continue to fight for justice, to sue, to speak with ministers, and in general he would like to speak with the President of Ukraine and tell his story to him in private. During the shelling of the Skhidnyi neighborhood, 31 people were killed, 117 were injured. Almost 65 million hryvnias, or $4 million, were spent on repairs and compensation. These are the funds of local and state budgets, enterprises, and international organizations. But the total damages were estimated at 110 million hryvnia, or almost $7 million. 5 years later, the effects of the shelling are hardly visible in Skhidnyi, though some of the apartments are still covered with adhesive tape. It's advisable to prevent glass shattering during explosions. After the shelling, Valery Kirsanov, a former traffic policeman from Mariupol, was detained. He was accused of spotting the fire during the shelling of Skhidnyi. He was sentenced to 9 years in the summer of 2019 for complicity in a terrorist organization, and he left the detention center right away as per Savchenko's amnesty law. Those who demanded a tougher sentence met him outside the detention center with an antiseptic green dye. They keep coming to Kirsanov's house even now, leaving inscriptions on the gate. His house has a high fence, the windows are boarded up, his doorbell was turned off. Local journalists say that Kirsanov was sent to the so-called DPR as part of the prisoner exchange, but his neighbors insist that he's still here.
Не подскажете, ваш сосед Валерий бывает здесь или нет? Час назад ехал?
Где-то так, да.
А к нему никогда не дозвониться, не добраться?
Не знаю, я его даже не знаю, я никто его не видел. Ну да, он где-то час назад вот уехал.
In 2018, the Security Service of Ukraine published the results of the investigation into the shelling of the Skhidnyi neighborhood. They named 9 serving Russian officers who were involved in the shelling of the city with 500,000 people. Later, the prosecutor's office reported that 3 Russian officers and 1 militant, a citizen of Ukraine, were handed notes of suspicion. Other than Kirsanov, no other arrests were made.